Hey everyone, Friday night, instead of being out at the club or out partying or whatever, this is what I'm doing. Making a video. Well, plugging my phone in first. I'm making a video on self responsibility and the principle that I live by. One of the 13 that I'm making. Over this 13-day challenge that I've given myself to speak up about what really matters. And it's been really cool to see that I've got some great feedback from people that I've talked to individually on seeing these different principles and how they interrelate to each other and how it's extremely sound. It's the most sound principles, meaning it just makes sense. And if right now you're like out with some friends or whatever you do on Friday nights, well, watch this at a time where you can actually really be present with it and process it, because that's living responsibly. And I'll get to what I mean by that in a moment. So responsibility is something that you live. It's who you are. And it's in every moment, it's your starting point that you can have. When we say responsibility or you're responsible for something, I remember me back in the day, I used to not like responsibility. I used to not want to be responsible for anything. I remember even like as simple stuff as like putting dishes away. I would intentionally not go into the kitchen because I knew that my mom or dad was going to ask me to help put dishes away into the cupboard. It's like, talk about avoiding responsibility. Like, that's insane. They put a roof over my head, fed me food, took care of me, and I would just avoid wanting to even contribute. Now, that came from many different things, like why as a child I thought it was a good idea to avoid responsibility. But either way, it's now, in the present moment, it's my responsibility to look at that, to look at all that BS and everything that I had, accumulated. And to actually sort it out so I can become the most effective version of myself, to take as much responsibility as I can, to then take responsibility for things beyond just myself. And at a certain point, take responsibility for the whole world and what's happening here. And it's not to say that I'm going to be like king of the world or something, like, don't be silly. But when you can start looking at the planet Earth and all the people on this planet as your equals, and that you're not better than them, you're not worse than them, we're just equal in that sense, and you can take responsibility for that, the way you understand the world and the way you look at the world will change. Because now, instead of looking at a big business, let's say, and you see like ExxonMobil has their oil spill, it's like, oh, like that's horrible. It's so easy to go into blame. Say, oh, that's just big business, that's just greedy people, that's just human nature, that's just people are evil, people are sinful, whatever your way of skewing it is. But in reality, you're evil, I'm evil, you're sinful, I'm sinful. We're allowing this to happen by participating in a money system that, for example, whereas why we still have oil in the first place. And that moment of deciding to blame something, that's where you lose your power. In that moment of blame and thinking that, oh, it's someone else's fault, that's where you lose your power. Now, if, for example, let's say there's a child born into an abusive situation, right? That child, like in the positive thinking community, a lot of people say, oh, well, that child's just creating it, or that child's just creating, poverty, or the fact that they have to be in that situation. Like, no, that child's innocent and they're born into a situation that we're collectively creating. That's what's really happening there. That child is not some being that's like, I'm going to choose to live this really horrible life. Like, that's not what's going on. It's collectively, we've all not taken full responsibility to ensure that every child who comes into this world is given their proper needs. But, like I'm saying, at a certain point, as you take responsibility for your life and for the lives of those around you, and you support others to be more effective versions of themselves, at a certain point, you start taking responsibility for the whole world. and what we've accepted and allowed. So much BS that we've accepted and allowed. I mean, do you like the extent of consumerism? This is insanity. That like we have tons and tons of products. Like, you ever see those little plastic rings for like on Halloween that have a spider on the plastic ring? There are like millions of those produced for one day out of the year. Some kid wears it for 30 seconds, like, haha, look at this spider ring, and then it ends up being broken or thrown away. It's like, how much effort went into producing that thing, marketing that thing, distributing that thing? How many semis did it have to go through, whatever? Like, that's idiotic that we're allowing that to happen. But that's just, I'm not here to blame that. I'm here to say, on some level, I'm being idiotic by not realizing how to change the system so we don't value things like spider rings or like, even look at Hollywood and the media and what's being put on on Netflix and in the movie theaters and things like that. It's just insanity. But let's do something about it. There's enough people whining and complaining. Let's take responsibility. So, for those of you who are willing to do that, let's pull this apart. Let's look at what is self-responsibility. What is this principle? All right, so this is in the description. And this is the principle of self-responsibility. Living and applying my ability to respond within the realization that I alone am responsible for what I accept and allow inside myself, my relationships, and my outside world. Dang, talk about it. That's like Mike Tyson punching you with words. Living and applying my ability to respond within the realization that I alone am responsible for what I accept and allow inside myself, my relationships, and my outside world. So first, let's go inner. What are you accepting and allowing inside yourself? Are you accepting and allowing yourself to beat yourself up? To be your own worst enemy? To judge yourself? To find little things to complain about? Odds are probably, because that's what we've accepted and allowed, is a school system that sucks, that degrades people's self-esteem, parents not actually knowing how to fundamentally empower their kids, or having to go work a job or two and so they don't have time to. And again, I'm not blaming anyone. I'm coming here with solutions. And for those who also want to step up and take responsibility for this, that's time to work together. Right? No one can do this alone. Now, let's look at what are we accepting and allowing inside of ourselves. Are we allowing these thoughts, these BS thoughts of like just judging ourselves, just getting lost in our mind, not even being here and enjoying like the present moment? Like, can you just enjoy being, let's say you have a pet. Can you enjoy just being with your pet and not have to pull out your phone and go on Instagram? Can you just enjoy looking at the sky and some clouds? Can you enjoy the passing by of some stranger and you both like smile at each other, say, hi, how you doing? Like, are you able to even be present? Or are you trapped in your mind because you're accepting and allowing your mind to run rampant? Right? That's something you really have to look for yourself within self-honesty. No one can do that for you. No one's a mind reader. No one's a psychic. It's on you to do that. And do it for all of us. Right? Really look at yourself and take that responsibility, because what you accept and allow within, you're going to accept and allow in the outside world. So if you're accepting and allowing judgment and doubt and all that, you're going to accept and allow that in the outside world too. And you're going to be okay with the fact that the world's a really bad place for a lot of people. I'd say the majority of people. There's so much suffering happening. Like, people are not equipped to live in this world, now especially with coronavirus and all that's happening. It's insane. So, what are we accepting and allowing? Okay, now, so that's within ourselves. And if there's anything inside yourself that you're sick and tired of accepting and allowing, that's why, so go back to video, the third one I made, on self-perfection through self-creation, where I talk about self-forgiveness. And take responsibility to forgive yourself for all this stuff. Because you picked up that somewhere. You picked up that self-judgment. Maybe it was from your mom, from your dad, from your teacher, from your babysitter, from your brother, sister, whoever. You picked that up. Probably from the media, too. And so that's going on inside you. You can change that. This is, again, living and applying your ability to respond. So that's within yourself. So look at that. Take a piece of paper, look at all the thoughts you don't like that you have, and start writing them out. And then, for those who are serious and want to get into this, reach out. Now, let's look at the next part. It says, my relationships. So I alone am responsible for what I accept and allow in my relationships. That's a big one. Let's say you have a partner, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever. Are you the kind of couple that's okay with the fact that maybe you get into an argument and you don't resolve it? And then at the end of the night, you have that opportunity, you have that moment before you go to bed or whenever it is, but you don't bring it up. And you accept and allow that there's secret mind, back chat. Like you just hang out in your mind and said, well, I could be intimate with them. Intimate meaning able to be vulnerable and share yourself. And not like in some weird way, just like this is what's on my mind. And you can be real. That is a way of taking responsibility in your relationships, which is really empowering. When you have a partner and you're on the same page, and I'll get into this, it's going to be in like 6 or 7 days, when I get into relationships as agreements, because that's another principle that I live by, is looking at what are you and your partner agreed to. And if you two are agreed to, like, yes, we are going to stick together and we're going to make this be an awesome relationship, that's phenomenal. Now that involves you looking at what you're accepting and allowing, because there's probably a lot of BS, because no one was effectively taught how to have a relationship. Nobody. I mean, the divorce rate's like still over 50%. Why? Why is that still a thing? Right? It's because nobody's been effectively empowered to understand what an agreement is, how to take responsibility and all that. But I'm taking responsibility to speak out about this because I don't see many other people doing this. I see some people, I see Cameron and Katie talking about this. If you don't know them, I'd suggest following Cameron and Katie Cope. My girlfriend Jessica and I talk about this. I see Kian and Asif Nazarali talking about this. And it's about speaking out about stuff that matters. Because if we don't, that means we're just accepting and allowing the haphazard stuff that's going on in the world. So that's in relationships. Are you going to accept and allow anything less than your utmost potential and your partner's utmost potential? That's a big one. Is there those habits that your partner has or that you have that you two know you shouldn't be doing? Maybe it's smoking cigarettes, or maybe it's, eating a certain type of way or whatever. And like, don't go judging yourself. Don't go jump on that judge bandwagon or like feel really bad about yourself. If there's a habit you want to break, you don't need to break it today. Rather, just be honest. Like, okay, I'm still smoking cigarettes. Like, I want to get rid of this. And then start coming up with a plan. Right? You're going to probably need tools and support to do that. But it's in those moments of taking responsibility for what we're accepting and allowing. Okay? Now, the other part of this is, so after we go into what we accept and allow in our relationships, because at a certain point, you can accept and allow the really good stuff. Like, I accept and allow the fact that, like Jessica and I, like usually every night we go on a walk. We talk about cool things. We listen to music, listen to podcasts. And it's like awesome. That's what I'm accepting and allowing in our relationship. So accepting and allowing is actually a really cool thing. It's like how we actually create reality. Like there's a whole deeper thing behind cause and effect and how that works. But just start to look at what are you accepting and allowing, not just in a bad way of like, oh, I'm accepting that I'm like, not happy with how I look or whatever. But rather like, I'm also accepting that humans can change. I'm accepting and allowing that we can actually create a better world. Like that's pretty cool. So look at acceptance and allowance in that broader context. I'm saying so much in this video. Like I would suggest if you're resonating with this, definitely watch it from the beginning and take some notes because this is just really important stuff. Like there's not another way to put it. It's just really important stuff that really matters. So now we're looking at I alone am responsible for what I accept myself, my relationships, and my outside world. Yeah. So when we look at the fact that there's, homelessness, there's coronavirus right now has disrupted so much stuff that we have a current political system where not many people are happy with both of the people that are being, shown to us as our options. Like, that's what we're currently accepting and allowing. And I see so many people complain about politics, but very, very few saying, I'm going to actually step up and join politics. I'm going to run and I'm going to change the system. And my peers and I are going to step up as a group and change the system. That's real responsibility. If you're just complaining but you're not offering a solution, you're just wasting people's time. Like that's not acceptable. You can have your view on, okay, well, I don't think this policy is best because of this reason, and you can back that up with your reasoning. Cool. But then let's work toward a solution. And then are you willing, if you want to criticize Trump all day, are you willing to stand in his position? Are you willing to be in the White House and make those decisions? Like, or even, criticizing anyone in general. Are you willing to stand in their shoes? Because we got to really start looking at each other as equals, and that we're in this together, and that we have different roles to play. But individual responsibility is critical. Without that, you're hoping for some savior that's not going to come. You're hoping for some handout that may or may not come, and then you become dependent on that. So you will need at times, there will be people that will come by and help you, and you need help. You need a network and support. Like, don't go try and do it alone. When I say individual responsibility, I don't mean, just be a lone wolf or like live on an island. Don't do that. Rather, find people who care about things that matter and then step up with them and then seek to collaborate and operate by principle. Because then no matter what's happening, you always go back to those principles, and that will support you in making decisions. So as we now start to take more responsibility for our outside world, it makes sense, and it's done in a way where we're not creating consequences that future generations have to deal with. We actually just get to walk forward together. And then the people who already are in positions to actually really step up and realistically say, yes, I can get into office. Yes, I can get into Congress. Yes, I could be governor here or mayor here or whatever. Or I could just take responsibility for the fact that I'm a teacher or a principal at a school. Like, whatever that level of responsibility is, take it, own it, and then accumulate more responsibility, right? This requires a strong willingness to change. And this requires, for me, it was requiring tools like TechnoTutor and DIP Lite to be able to even handle doing that. Because what TechnoTutor is doing is increasing your ability to process information and think. Where a year ago, I could not handle running 3 businesses. Now I run 3 businesses. And I'm willing to grow them even more. Where a year ago, I'd be like, oh, this is good, too much. I just want to go chill. And I'm like, that's the most selfish thing I could have done. So now I actually stepped up, and now I'm doing this for myself, and I'm speaking out about it because there are others who are seeing the common sense of this and want to join in. Because it's time to step up and take responsibility for the future. So that's that. That's on the outside world point. Now this is the one other part. For those who just joined, I'm reading through the definition of what is the principle of self-responsibility. We went through the first part. Now, here's the kicker. Only I have the power and ability to change that which is compromising who I am, what I live, and how this affects others. Only I have the power and ability to change that which is compromising who I am, what I live, and how this affects others. Again, it ain't some savior coming on the clouds. It's not some, advanced off-earth species that's going to come and save the day or whatever. It's on us. When you look in the mirror, that's who the savior is. It's yourself, and you're saving yourself. And you aren't here to go save other people either. We're here to empower each other, support each other, share things with each other, listen to each other, connect, and then walk together. And that is really responsibility in action. So that is my sharing of this principle of self-responsibility. There will be more to come. I just shared that. Oh, hang on. I got to read. What is the mind? Oh, the mind. Okay. Where do thoughts, feelings, and emotions come from? Fundamental questions to resolve. Taking responsibility. That's a good one, Dion. So what is the mind? Where do thoughts, feelings, and emotions come from? Yeah, really investigate that, because We need to start taking responsibility for what we're accepting and allowing in our minds with these feelings and emotions. Because if you don't understand how basically these emotions and all this energy is trapped in our bodies and at an unconscious and subconscious level, you're going to be walking around your whole life thinking that you're making these decisions and that, like, oh, this is me and this is my personality and like these are my opinions, when in reality it's 99% under the surface actually running the show. And that was a hard pill for me to swallow, but now I see it. And so it's now a process of taking responsibility, and it takes time. It takes dedication, it takes effort, but it is worth every single step in the journey. So, and for those who want to hear more about that, there's the Destiny I process. DIP Lite is the free version of it. I'm going through DIP Pro, and it is the hands down most practical course I've ever been through. Right now I'm working through different characters that at a certain point in time in my life I had come up with and accepted and allowed this idea of a character that helped me get something for myself. So like I had this character of like wanting to be like charismatic and be funny. And as a kid I loved to make people laugh. But in reality it was because I was feeding off that energy and it was doing something for my emotions and my mind. And it's like deep stuff that you're looking at. And now is this actually the best thing for me to do? Because I would notice it's so much in that, but that's me taking responsibility, and that's like a little glimpse. And if anyone wants to hear more about that, just reach out. And then, yeah, it says our ability to respond can also change as we change. We stand as the universe, as the you in reverse. Yeah, so our ability to respond can also change. Our ability to respond. God. Whenever Gyan writes something, I usually read it 3 or 4 times. Our ability to respond can also change as we change, till we stand as the universe, as the universe. Yeah. So this entire universe is you in a very practical sense. And as we rise up to realize our equality to it, so we're not separate, we're equal and one with it. That is ultimate responsibility. Then we can actually really start creating here. Until then, we're accepting and allowing less than that utmost and ultimate potential. So, time to take responsibility, everybody. Hope you enjoy your weekend, whatever you're doing on Friday night or Saturday morning, wherever you're at in the world. Look at what is my responsibility in this, what am I accepting and allowing, and how can I start to really use my gifts and what I'm currently responsible for and do it better until we're all at a point where this reality actually becomes the best reality. That's what I'm about. And I suggest if any of that resonates to reach out. All right, everyone.